Hello everybody, so I'm going to be doing a review on Evil Dead Burn. I'm going to do the first section of this video as a spoiler-free review, and then the later section of the video will include spoilers. So I was really hyped for this film. I love Evil Dead, I love everything to do with the franchise. I convinced my mum to come and see it with me because she'd never seen any Evil Dead films up until fairly recently. So sorry about the state of my hair, it's really hot and I'm just hot and bothered. So there is a bit of a trigger warning for domestic abuse in this film. There were scenes that showed it and also a lot of dialogue around it. So if you struggle with that, I'd maybe not go and see this in the cinema. I loved the whole family dynamic in this film. I thought the family dynamic was great. Everyone in this film was an absolute arsehole, and I felt that all the kills, all the deaths were really satisfying. The dynamic itself was really chaotic and uncomfortable. There were quite a few scenes in the film that made me really, really horrifically uncomfortable. That is also in turn kind of what I appreciated in the film. It wasn't pure jump scares and like creepiness. It focused on making every single injury really gnarly and gross and make you physically cringe. So if you struggle with things like with teeth, with eyes, with fingers, with ears, you're probably gonna have a bit of a bad time. So got a weak stomach, maybe don't watch it. The cinematography of the film was great. It was classic. It was the fight scenes and the way they were shot were really great. I also really like the colour palettes. Like there was a sequence where they were fighting and then they let a fire extinguisher go off, and that whole sequence was so satisfying. And like the colour palette after that with all the aftermath of the fire extinguisher was great. There were also so many nods to the previous films. There was like Jessica and Ellie from Evil Dead Rise, and there was also in a like blink if you miss it moment a picture of Ash. Now I'm going to go into the spoilers. Beginning scene was on a fishing lake, and I used to go fishing with my dad a lot when I was younger. And I got the fishing hook stuck in my hand, and I still get flashbacks to that even now, and that was like 20 odd years ago. But in the intro sequence, the guy gets it like stuck through his mouth, and there was also a scene with the dog. There's a family dog. It didn't explicitly show the dog die, but you knew that's what happened. The meal where the dog dies, it was giving Resident Evil 7 vibes with the family. If you know, you know. And then the dog turns into a deadite. What more could you want? So as I kind of touched on briefly in the like spoiler-free section, I loved the family dynamic. It was so uncomfortable, so unnerving, and the dynamic made me enjoy the film that little bit more, because when shit hit the fan, I was like, let's go. I liked the way that the film portrayed the grief within the family. I also loved the grandma. The grandma was great. She broke my heart because she blatantly had dementia. But she also kind of, her quips and one-liners kind of provided a bit of a comic relief. It had everyone in the screening laughing out loud at some of the bits she said. Going back onto the family dynamic and stuff, the transformations of the parents especially really gave off Resident Evil 7 Biohazard energy with the mum and dad from that, and it was the mum and dad in this as well. The part with the dad where he starts like descending was so good. And then, like I said, the dinner table scene, and then also later on when the mum kind of, she opens up the bedroom window and the dad's there and they're sort of like sucking each other's faces, and then they're like, she's like licking the blood out of his mouth. Like it was quite something. The two of them really reminded me of Resident Evil 7, and like that is one of my favourite games of all time, so I loved that. There was a scene later in the film where Alice, who is the main character, gets a fountain pen jammed into her ear, and it gets stuck and it snaps. Then she has to get it out with tweezers, and the way they do that, and they have like the audio, so it's like you've lost part of your hearing as well. Like the actual like, it all made me so uncomfortable, and it made like me and a couple of the other girls in the cinema gag. It was like, ugh. So in terms of the characters, like in Evil Dead Rise, I rooted for every single character in that film basically. I was really sad when they all turned into deadites, but in this one, I didn't really root for anyone in this film in the grand scheme. Like, everyone was a bit of an arsehole and a shitty person, so it made their deaths and turning very satisfying. The only thing I will say that kind of brings the film down a little bit for me is, given the subject matters of like abuse and grief and things like that, I would have loved for it to have had some more like dialogue heavy scenes, because I think that's the one thing it was missing. In my opinion, the best performances are the parents, and that is purely due to like the way the mum is kind of dealing with her grief, and then the dad's descent and the transformation. They are the two best performances in this film, I think. But overall, I think I would probably rate it a 4 out of 5. I think, like, I loved it, but the lack of dialogue heavy scenes does kind of bring it down a little bit for me. But overall, I loved it, and it was a great time. It was a great film. My mum loved it as well, and yeah, it was really, really good. If you're into this sort of film and you want to go and see it, I would recommend seeing it in the cinema over waiting for it to come on streaming. But yeah, that was my ramble about Evil Dead Burn. Thank you for watching if you have, and thank you for listening if you have.